I told you a little bit about him. I'm going to have him go ahead and introduce himself as who he is in the animation industry.
Let's see. I'm Chuck Patton. I am a director, storyboard artist. I used to say producer for those guys. Ex-comic book artist, ex-garbage man.
Yeah. Sanitation.
Sanitation engineer. I like that job. I miss it. I miss my truck.
They're not
Anyway,
appreciated enough,
they're
seriously.
not. You know, I miss my little arm.
My family during the holidays, you always make some brownies and
do.
you leave
Here's
a
the
present.
rails.
Yep.
Here's us.
Sorry. Sorry.
I'm trying not to
I'm
use
sorry.
any time, but go for it.
I'm so sorry.
Well, hold on. All right, so
You want me to tell you what I've done?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Oh, please, because I was about to stop. Chuck is a wonderful person, but he's super, super humble. You have to force him to talk good things about himself.
I'll talk about the more fun stuff first. I'm a director on such shows as, or was, G.I. Joe, Captain Planet, I was one of the creators of, that you would never read about.
But speaking of garbage man, let's just
Yes. I told you, I'm starting the good stuff first.
He's our hero.
Yeah, you got it. Director on Spawn, director on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the millennial years, as I was told, 2003. Also, Dead Space Downfall, and I'm missing something, I'm sure. I've done a lot. Kulapari. Oh yeah, my most recent show was
On Netflix right now.
Netflix, Kulapari.
Starring Keith David, Phil Lamar, and Mark Hamill.
Yes.
You may have heard of
As the
Mark.
Mark who?
Now, he said he was the director of Spawn. What he didn't say is he won an Emmy for Spawn.
Emmy Award winning.
This season.
They used to make us say that, but I used to say, let's not get a medallion and something like Flavor Flav or Emmy Award winning director. It doesn't matter. It just don't matter.
You all have that one friend who just won't say nice things about themselves. You gotta force them. That's Chuck. And I was ready for this. So.
You were on it.
All right, and further down the line.
I'm Samantha Knapp. I am a comic writer, and I'm also a production designer for Boom Studios. And I did a lot of concept work for the short Welcome to Showside, which I was a co-author with this
Be nice.
right here.
Be nice.
Okay. With
Don't be
this
nice.
Joker.
I
Right
gotta head
here.
off before it goes crazy.
That's fine. I was the co-author with Ian McGinty on Welcome to Showside, which is being made into a cartoon right now. I did the concept work for it, and I also assisted with the music. So
Yes.
that's me. Sorry. I ramble at these. I got excited about talking about brownies for a garbage man. I'm sorry. I do ramble.
I mean, if you don't love brownies.
Get out.
Go for it.
Yeah, was that or like
I am
banana
texting
bread?
somebody to go get Larry Houston.
You say sweet potato pie, I'm gonna fall on the floor and do that.
Is it pecan or pecan? That's
Oh
what I
God, don't
always
start
try to-
this.
Wait, where are you from?
Here we go. That's him right there.
I'm
That's
from-
him right there, folks.
Oh, there he is.
Hi.
Larry, you son of a gun. I was just with you 50. Guys, Larry Houston. A round of applause. I'm gonna throw this down here. Yeah, yeah! What are they gonna do, fire me? Probably.
You just started this.
Yeah, I just started this job. And so,
It's rolling already.
y'all want to see me fight Larry Houston? Because it's about to happen. All right, and so Sam, where were you from?
I grew up right outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. You guys were talking about pecan and sweet pie. I was like, I'm from Georgia.
Well,
What's up?
I went to college in Savannah,
There you
so
go.
and we lived there for about 10 years.
Yep.
So that's why I still say y'all. That's
So
not
Savannah Art,
Yes,
Yeah.
the Savannah College of Art and
a
Design.
great school if you guys are looking to get into animation and design. It's a fantastic school.
Yeah, if you hate
Yeah.
money, it's an expensive investment. Yeah.
But you go up 2 hours to Augusta, we know how to party. I'm just saying. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Ian McGinty. I've done a lot of stuff. Just let me feel, probably that's pretty big. I started off as a comic book artist, and we just moved, like Samantha was saying, from Savannah to North Hollywood because I got a couple gigs over at Nickelodeon. We just wrapped the new Invaders Zim movie that I just saw the screening for like 2 weeks ago, and it's the funniest GD movie I've ever seen. And I don't say that just because I have 2 credits in that movie.
Any Invader Zim fans in the audience?
All the old people. Yeah, I remember that one. It's great.
Oh, I mean, we have the voice of Gert here.
Yep, Ricky's
yeah.
here.
And one of the most iconic characters to be introduced in animation in the last 20 years. Get ready for that. I know a lot about animation, so I'm super prepared.
Dude, bring it. You're the right
And then,
now.
yeah, and like Samantha was saying, like we are working on our TV show right now. It's being developed through Nelvana/Chorus, which is a Canadian-based animation company, so everybody's really polite.
They're so polite.
Too polite, I don't trust that.
No, it's sometimes.
Yeah, wait till you work with the French Canadians.
Bonjour, slightly different.
More
A
stories.
lot of cheese over that way. I'm no funny, sorry. And then what else? I've done some stuff for Rocco's Modern Life, Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Being Puppy Cat, Hello Kitty, which is really weird when people look at me and they go like, "You worked on Hello Kitty?" And I go like, "Yeah." Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hello Kitty's great. You know what's weird about Hello Kitty though? Hello Kitty though is just like, you draw it and then shoot them over the stuff and then they're like, you need to move that eye.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
millimeter
that's their Mickey Mouse.
to the thing, but what Sanrio's 75 years old now at this point. I'm 30. I can't.
They have Hello Kitty planes and waffles, okay?
do have Hello Kitty. Like,
Here are the rails. Here's us.
this is important. This is important to me. Okay.
Aren't you the
You
stop
missed
sign?
garbage truck talk for like an hour.
Aren't you the stop sign? Aren't you the
Yes.
stop
Cool.
sign?
So anyways, Carson Network, Nickelodeon, all that kind of stuff. It's been a blast. I'll move on.
Oh, you're good. Take my quips all with a grain of salt. That's what I do. I do jokes.
So,
Please introduce yourself and the things you've done in animation.
okay. My name is Larry Houston, and I was the producer director of several shows. One of them you might have known was called The X-Men. I also worked on directing the X-Men, G.I. Joe, Captain Planet, Fantastic Four, Kid Play,
I like how you looked at me because I do now.
and even Care Bears.
Yeah.
I've done a whole bunch of stuff. I've been doing in the business for like 35 years, working on different shows, Ninja Turtles and Thundar. I mean, it's a ton of stuff that I can barely remember, so I'm getting old here.
Spider-Man's Amazing Friends. I seen that.
Spider-Man's Amazing Friends.
I seen
Yeah,
that
that's
in
what
the
it is. Yeah.
Did you work on Turbo Team
They know.
too?
Yeah, I was one of the ones that I started in the business at Filmation, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't know it, but when I got in, I was the first black storyboard artist in Hollywood, so I kind of broke a barrier.
The first black storyboard artist in Hollywood. I was ready to go into that if you
There was a guy named Floyd Norman who was in the business way before me. He's the one who told me that, because I didn't realize it at the time. Because when I got hired, there was a bunch of other, minority guys got hired at the same time, so it was like, it was no big deal. I didn't think at the time, but
Yeah.
that's when he told me that I was the first.
But now it is a big deal. And we're going to get into some of the other big deal stuff that you guys have done. So I had them introduce themselves and go over, but what you see from introducing themselves is you're seeing animation from different perspectives. Like you've got Chuck and Larry who are a little bit more old school, did some of the classic stuff. You got the newer generation. These guys still do stuff. Like Coolapari just came out like this year. So I mean these guys are still active, but they're like the older versus the newer. This is kind of the kids. Them dangles, kids.
Put this.
No, I'm sorry. But
The
from
baby boomers and the millennials in war area.
kids. But my point there is for people like me who love animation and people like you who love animation and maybe want to get into animation, you're going to get a lot of answers from these guys that are going to come from different places, different perspectives, different experiences. And that's one of the nice things about this panel that you were so lovely to come out to. So please give yourselves a round of applause. If you ever make a bad or negative statement, just have the audience applaud themselves. That's a little trick. All right, guys. So one of the first things I want to get through is we'll go across the board and we'll go into how did you get into animation and why did you choose to do animation? And we'll start with Chuck.
Okay. How do I? Well, My previous career was drawing comics, and I had worked on one of the top books at DC Comics called Justice League of America. And I also had done Teen Titans and Vigilante, and I had moved out here. I had started back east, and I moved out here for Higher Horizons. And one of the Higher Horizons was they were looking for guys like me to come into animation. A lot of comic book properties were being produced or being changed into animation. And I worked for a company called Deep. And Deep was not only despised, but also one of the most busiest studios out there. And we had every property you can imagine, from Ghostbusters to this and that. And they had zero understanding of comic books. So I was kind of brought in as a comic guy. And so my first property that I helped them develop was Cops. And it started off as being super cop. And then they realized, we need more than one guy. This G.I. Joe thing, that works, right? So we get a bunch of cops and we make more money. So it became Cops. And I helped them kind of get the visual and the whole backstory. Because again, a lot of these guys, comics and animation is an interesting thing. They cross lines, and yet they both have territories that neither one really appreciate and understand. They don't talk to each other, is what I'm trying to say. So me coming in as that, and Larry is another one of the rare guys who's understanding and get comics, and you're talking to animation writers and artists who see comics and all they see is a lot more work, a lot of lines. And you're trying to explain to them, well, it's not just that, there's more to it. And that's how I got started.
All right, Sam.
I got started accidentally. I did not expect to be working in animation, but it's fantastic. I graduated with basically a degree in comic books from SCAD, like you were saying.
Sequential
And
art. Let's give it the credit.
That's just the frou-frou word.
Gravitas.
Yeah, that's what we're paying for.
But never mind, sequential, that's a whole different thing. Point being, so when we were doing the comic, it was about halfway through that we found out that they wanted to make an animated short of it to pitch for a show. And at that point, we pretty much just did the oh my god, yeah thing. And at first, oh, you lie so much.
I was like, time is money.
Yeah, right. So basically, especially because the people who at first were working on the short, they had ideas and concepts and everything, but they didn't necessarily know all of the background and everything from the Welcome to Showside comic, which had been ground into my brain and was every morning and night when I woke up. It was right there. So basically, I was able to help bring a lot more elements into it that kept it close to the heart of what Showside was going to be. And as it's been moving forward, now it's with Nelvana. They're the company that did Clone High and Care Bears and David the Gnome, all that. We've been just continuing to get to expand on it. It's kind of accidentally is how I got into animation. It's basically.
All right, and Ian, she forced you to go.
I'm used to this. So we were in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and I discovered that mezcal is pretty awesome. And I found myself in a conversation with a person I did not know was the art director on the new Invader Zim movie, Jenny Goldberg, who's amazing, who we were sort of hanging out, and a big part sort of I guess getting into and maintaining a creative career, if you're talking about comic books, if you're talking about animation, if you're talking about almost anything that requires sort of maybe like an unconventional job, I suppose, is you gotta be able to really be cool in situations where you're completely freaking out about stuff because...
you gotta be able to schmooze.
Yes. Thank you. So I've been working in comics for 10 years, something like that. I was doing the Adventure Time comics, the Steven Universe comics, all the stuff I talked about earlier, all that kind of stuff. And then it just lightning struck, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say lightning struck, because what you don't want to realize at the time is somebody can go to you, hey, I want you to work for me. And that is what this Jenny Goldberg, this art director, said. I would really like you to come work with us on this new Invader Zim movie we're doing. Jonan Vasquez, the creator, was like probably my inspiration for even drawing in the first place. And then it was like, you know, I'm sitting there and an earthquake had just hit, literally.
He's not kidding.
Yeah, an earthquake had just hit, so everybody was freaking out and this and that, which is funny to me because I'm not from California, and I'm obviously not from Mexico, so I was like not sure what an earthquake like was, like what it would feel like.
No, he literally means we were at a big banquet
We
dinner.
refer to it as God burst.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
so, because like in the movies they show like, but in reality you kind of do this.
It's like surfing without.
Yeah.
The trees were going like this.
It's like ground surfing. And then me, I'm in my brain, because I grew up sort of more rural, I'm like, oh, there must be a cow in the trees, because all the trees were doing this.
A cow in the trees?
Yeah, like yeah.
Like cows do.
Yeah, you know, like
That's what East Coast does. You see, what East Coast people don't get that. West Coast people don't get that.
I'm pitching this as a show.
There you go. It's a cow in a tree.
Cow trees. Tree. Anyways,
Here's the rails.
Yes. Anyways, what's funny is that, like, you know, it sounds like such a, you know, random moment where, like, oh my, the art director of like this cool thing that, you know, I grew up watching Invaders and was super obsessed with that. Like I said, Joe Vasquez and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, wow, the reality of it is they had actually done a ton of research on me and knew I was going to be there and very like strategically planned out, like asking me if I wanted to work.
Sounds so creepy.
It sounds like they're the CIA.
That's how smart people do it. They do it like a supervillain.
That's why
It's
they're
gonna be in Mexico. There's gonna be an earthquake.
Yes.
We're gonna fake the earthquake.
Yes.
He's gonna think it's a cow in a tree. And we're gonna ask him if he wants to come on Invaders Zim.
Listen, man.
It's Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible
Whole
5
Ocean's
cow
11
trees.
sequence of how it's supposed to play out.
Invaders and
So they asked you to come on. And
So they asked me to come on, and I of course said yes, and then that completely uprooted both of our lives because Samantha and I were partners together, and it was completely worth it. And like we got it. Now it's been sort of like, you know, we just kind of. I'm not saying we're awesome, but no, I'm saying that we've really learned. Funny enough, like coming to conventions and things like this and dealing with comics, we've really learned how to sort of. You know, maintain the relationships between people and really kind of act professionally. Obviously not right now, but you know, and it's just kind of about like being a cool person and just, you know, making your deadlines and being whatever. And they saw that was something that we could do, and yeah, it just kind of went from there. It was just kind of the definition of snowball, really.
Perfect. There you go. And Larry, how did you get involved?
For me, it was how I got into animation was kind of a long trek. Because when I got out of high school, my mom said, you know, drawing is good, but you need a real job. And so, I mean, not illiterate, but that's what she told me. So basically, when I started working, I was fixing computers for a living for about 7 years. And it was in the 7th year that I was getting so bored with it. I was running diagnostics on computers, and as it's running, I'm drawing my own little cartoon characters and stuff. And it was mainly the two guys, Mark Evanier and Will Mania, were both two friends of mine, and they were telling me back then, animation studios would hire, it was seasonal work, and they were saying, you know, they hired people in January. So I said, okay, I decided to try and to see if I could make it as an artist. And so I quit a job that I'd been working for 7 years, you know, with paychecks every week. And I went out to go try out for what I thought was a job I wanted to do at Filmation, which was layout. And so I took the test and failed the test twice. And it's like, and I, you know, it's like going most of the month going, what the hell did I do this for? It's like, I can't make it as an artist. But there was a supervisor named Herb Hazeltine. And when I had my portfolio open, in high school, I had drawn my own versions of the Avengers, you know, with my own characters. I had made up my own storytelling stories. He saw what I had done there. And so Herb Hazeltine took me up to Don Christensen, who was the head of story at Filmation, introduced me to him, and he gave me a test, which it didn't, at the time, you know, I'm 24 years old, I'm going, well, okay, I took it home, and it didn't seem to be that hard. And I took it back to him the next day, which I surprised him. What I didn't know at the time was he had given me a live script that everybody was working on at that time. And he liked the work I had done. He put it into the show, and I got hired the same day. And so that's how I got into animation and started working on
That's pretty cool. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you, my favorite people right there. No, that's absolutely, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I started working on Flash Gordon and Lone Ranger and stuff, and meeting, you know, a lot of people whose work you've seen. We all started at Filmation, like Bruce Tim and Russ Heath.
I don't know Bruce Tim, who's that?
And we all started at Filmation. A lot of us got started, Lonnie Lloyd, Frank Parr, all of us. Not Frank Parr, sorry, he happened later, but yeah, we all started at Filmation. It just kind of branched out. I eventually left Filmation to work at Marvel Productions, and I was working on Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, and Marvel got the contract to do almost anything Hasbro was making as a toy. So we were doing Spider-Man, we were doing Hulk, we were doing G.I. Joe, Transformers, Inhumanoids, Bigfoot, muscle machine, anything. You know, we were just going like crazy. And for me, when I was working on G.I. Joe as a storyboard artist, one of the directors left to go to another company. So Don George was the supervising director at the time. He said, I had told him I wanted to be a director, so he gave me his slot. And so that's when I started directing, was on the G.I. Joe series. And so I got to be a director.
You sort of snowballed in your own way.
But were there cows in the trees?
Checkmate. Were they scouting you for 18 years? Guys, so before we get into my next question for our panel, I'm gonna get over here. Excuse me. We are gonna give away 3 of these Wreck-It Ralph DVDs, and I said you have a chance to win them. Now, how you're gonna win them, I want you to start thinking about right now. What I'm gonna do at the end, we are gonna have questions. If there's anything that wasn't covered, you can come up and ask a question. But you can also come up and pitch your own original cartoon character. Now, with this pitch, you need to do it in 3 sentences, 3-sentence description of your character. I would recommend what they look like, what their personality is, and what they do. These are just my, suggestions to you. Our panelists will pick their favorites, and we will give away 3 Wreck-It Ralph DVDs. So start getting your creative brains going on that. Something to think about to win your own Wreck-It Ralph DVD. Sponsored by Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet. Thank you.
Good plug.
I have sponsors that need this. All right, so what I want to get into is inspiration. Ian, you already talked about Johnny Vasquez was a big inspiration for you. I want to go through and go, when you were getting into drawing, when you were getting into animation, because everybody here seems to have a little bit of a background in comic books, comic book characters, but in comics and animation, who was an inspiration for you? And I'm going to start with Larry, and we're going to go down.
For me, for an inspiration, is one of the top guys in